I think the argument is over. I think it's fair to say which game company is truly carrying on the legacy of Gary Gygax. And it sure as hell ain't Wizards of the Coast. And anybody who says otherwise is probably smoking crack, because Wizards of the Coast and Hasbro continue to refuse to acknowledge Gygax, especially with this being the 50th year. Meanwhile, Trollord Games just was happily and proud to announce their acquisition of much of the remaining product that is still theirs to have access to, Castle Zagyg style. Yeah, congratulations. Now, obviously, I am a little bit biased towards Trollord's game and Castles and Crusades because they kindly gave me for free a copy of the Castle Zagyg campaign setting. So, yeah, they've owned a little of my loyalty. So, yeah, I'm a little biased. But that said, in the argument of who is carrying on the legacy of Gygax, especially this with the 50th anniversary, there's been a lot of stuff about, oh, it is Trollords, it isn't Trollords. Gary did a bunch of stuff with Trollords. Gary did nothing with Trollords. They're just milking his name. 5e is Gygax's legacy. 5e has nothing to do with Gygax. Gygax's legacy ended with Advanced D&D and those little, novelty projects he did, but that's it. Well, let us just read the announcement, and then I leave it to you to decide regarding the future as to who actually is doing their best to carry on the Gygax legacy and the D&D legacy, and this, the 50th anniversary. This comes to us from our friends of Trollord's Game today, about 30 minutes ago. Worlds of Gary Gygax. We are beyond pleased and honored to announce that the powers that be have released multiple works of the late Gary Gygax to Trollord Games for mass market publications. These include the complete Gygaxian Fantasy series. We don't know what that is. We'll get that to a second. Castle Zagyg, the city. Castle Zagyg Eastmark. Castle Zagyg, the Manse. Castle Zagyg Mouth of Madness. Castle Zagyg, the dungeons, including all 17 handcrafted levels and any sub-levels, and all related adventures to Castle Zagyg, like Teeth of Barkash Nour, the Hall of Many Pains, the Hermit, and a board game called Kings of England, Kings of France, which I'd never heard of, but I guess it was a board game Gary was working on. Those of us who are fans of the myths of Castle Greyhawk and have always wanted to see it, the announcement that they're being able to release the entire levels, including all the 17 levels of Castle Zagyg, is really exciting, because Castle Zagyg basically is copy-paste Castle Greyhawk, which just, Gygax had to change the names after, he got screwed over by Lorraine and lost the rights to everything that was associated with Castle Gygax. What you need to know right now is that they are currently going to be kickstarting something called the Gygaxian Fantasy World Kickstarter. The Kickstarter for the Hermit ended and broke 6 digits, but you can still pre-order it. And they have a couple of classic printings of the Castle Zagyg Yggsburg book set still available, and they're looking to get more. So from 2000 and now, still going forward, they will be releasing as much of Gygax's stuff as they have. So if you're wondering what is the Gygax Fantasy World series, we'll go down to here. That's the Canting Crew, which was a book Gary made, which is filled with words and languages. World Builder, which was another book about world building. Living Fantasy, Extraordinary Book of Names, Nation Builder, Cosmos Builders, Pantheons, Wayland Smith, which I think is a story he wrote, and Essential Places. So these are all just books that Gary wrote or has handed about world building, DMing, cosmos building, nation building, and a lot of books about language and words. People often talk about High Gygaxian, and the Canting Crew and Extraordinary Books of Names are a lot into, the languages that Gygax made up, the words that Gygax made up, how Gygax used words. Some of them I've read, and they're kind of, they're really cool and interesting and really get you into the brains of what Gygax was thinking, and others read like the instructions to a VCR. Like, I've read the Canting Crew, and it literally is just names. Yeah. So take of those what you will. Some of those I'm sure people are very excited about. Any chance to get into the, brain of Gary and the brain of Dave and the creation and the stuff. And other people are like, I don't want a book of names. But we'll get there. Blah, blah, blah. They're also going to, so yes, and I'm sure there's going to be more and more stuff as the estate makes more and more stuff available to them, including Castle Zagyg. Mike Stewart of Victorious RPG, Luke Gygax is working on this, James M. Ward is working on this, Jason V is working on this, Jeremy Frex is working on this, Davis Chenault, Peter Bradley, and Bill Udmans are working on it. So these are all people who are directly or indirectly related to the evolution of Castle Greyhawk becoming Castle Zagyg, including, of course, James Ward and Luke himself, and will include as much of the castle as they can get their hands on. And they're going to continue to do it, as well as, update it with new maps, new art, as well as trying to recreate stuff that Ernie and Luke and Gary made over the years. And, of course, consulting with people who, have researched. I wonder if does Troll Lord Games and the guy that made Secrets of Blackmoor talk to each other? Because he's got all that Dave Arneson Blackmoor stuff and the years of research he put into this. And, the Troll Lords has got all this Gygax stuff. I wonder if they ever talk to each other. They work together. If not, you guys should. You guys should work together. Next thing they have is coming out the Hall of Many Pains, which is sort of a massive planner adventure. It's kind of Gygax's take on Planescape. And he's got a board game coming out that they're also reprinting called Kings of England, Kings of France, which I've never heard of. But I think it is. So we've got all this coming out. We've got Castle Zagyg. We've got Castle Zagy's environments. Some more stuff on the cities, more stuff with the dungeon, more stuff around the dungeon. The dungeon proper, which is the thing I'm most excited about. Who hasn't wanted to see Castle Greyhawk? We've heard about it. We've seen bits and pieces of it over the years, but for 50 years, it's this myth that like 8 people have actually seen. Well, here we are going to get to see it. Well, as much as we can, considering it's obviously been changed from Castle Greyhawk to Castle Zagyg. And then of course we've got the England, the King of England thing. We've got the Hermit, which just got back started and has met its matches. So we should be receiving copies of that. We've got the Hall of Many Pains, which is sort of Gygax's Planescape, planar adventure kind of thing. Very exciting news. And once again, this should alleviate any arguments regarding the legacy of Gygax, or maybe, well, I don't know. I'm sure there's people who are going to say Troll Lord Games has nothing to do with Gygax. He, stopped by their office and they're just milking his name. And this stuff is something, conspiracy, something, not his legacy. And other people will say, oh yeah, this is definitely Gary's legacy. They fought this fight. They're getting this stuff. They're getting stuff from Luke and Ernie and the estate. So of course this is legacy. And then other people will say, well, if Luke is so behind this legacy, why is he making all this 5e stuff and this stuff through his own company? You would think he'd be working solely. I mean, people are going to find things wrong with this no matter what. And there's definitely going to be the people who say, fuck that. 5th edition is Gygax's legacy. It's canon. It's hardback. It says so right here in this book. Every page of 5th edition just embraces Gygax. Nowhere, as Gary mentioned. But yeah. So at the end of the day, I leave it to you to decide if this is something you want to invest in or something you're going to ignore. Are you excited about seeing these classic Gygaxian adventures brought back to life through modern day technology and art and printing, and truly getting an insight to the, one of the main creators of the hobby in this, the 50th year, and the excitement that Troll Lords is able to do this? Or do you just not care? You're just like, oh, another retro clone OGL D&D thing that I'm never going to own or use, so I really don't care. I don't know. I mean, obviously, again, I have to admit with full candor, I am a little biased, obviously, because Troll Lord Games bought my loyalty when they sent me that copy of the thing for free. And if you guys want to send me anything else for free, I greatly appreciate it. Now, for me, I want to see Castle Greyhawk. I want to see Castle Zagyg. I'm one of those people who've been fascinated with it. The original Mega Dungeon. On the other hand, these are a whole bunch of things I'm never going to use and can't afford. Honestly, most of these I'm not going to back because I'm never going to use them and I can't afford them. I don't need to spend $75 I don't have for a book about names. And I think a lot of other people are the same, are going to be thinking the same, especially now. And with so many other things coming out, and it's just, how is this going to affect the 50th? Are people going to be really excited about this? Are people going to be like, I don't care? You know, I mean, who the hell is Gygax? What does this have to do with 5e? Blah, blah, blah. I don't know. I don't know how excited the industry is going to be. And I don't know who has that kind of money. Let's be honest. I mean, most of the things on this list, I don't want. I'm never going to use. And I don't really have the wherewithal to spend the money on them. My main interest is my curiosity about Castle Zagyg. But other than that, I'm like, when am I going to use these? I mean, you know, well, you need them for your collection. If you don't, you're not a member of the old school. Well, I got kicked out of the old school last year. So, yeah, I don't need these. I'm interested. I'm excited. It definitely, in my mind, at least temporarily, settles the battle of who is maintaining the legacy of Gygax. So suck it, guy who keeps saying 5e is the legacy. But on the other hand, again, it's a lot of stuff. And for a lot of us, it's like, you know, let's be honest. A lot of people are going, I don't care. I'm never going to use it. Well, what does it mean? You know, other than bringing the history, making the history available to people. For every person that's excited about it, there's a person who's like, you know, going to find things wrong with it. And there's going to be the person who's like, well, that's great and that's exciting, but I can't afford it. And I can't use. When am I ever going to use it? I mean, I'm not running a Gygax Castle Zagyg campaign, and I doubt I ever will. But that said, I'm very excited to see this. I'm sure people like DM Bloodsworth will go in depth into this, but you can do your own research. The link is included. So if you want to find out what Trollord Games is doing with their chunk of the legacy of Gary Gygax for the 50th birthday of D&D, check it out. And again, I would ask, do the Trollord Games and the Secrets of Blackmoor Games guy ever talk to each other? Is there some communication between the two of them? Because you would think there should be, but I don't know. What do you think? Let me know what you're thinking. Happy afternoon. Happy February. Well, I mean, it's not February yet, but technically it's February. It's a lovely spring day here in Ventura. 80 degrees and sunny. It's gorgeous. So go outside. Stop listening to me.